Hey guys, it's AJ Miller here. If you guys don't know, I actually have a background in exercise science. Went to Bowling Green State University, minored in nutrition, also in physical therapy, did a little bit of graduate coursework. But the reason I'm doing this today is because I found that there's a lot of people who actually aren't aware of proper weight loss techniques and habits. So, over the last few months, I've actually lost about 16 to 18 pounds right now. And I'm finding a lot of people are saying, "Oh, are you doing keto? Are you doing this? Are you doing that?" And quite frankly, it was just small changes in my diet that I've done over a consistent period of time, which have allowed me to lose that weight. But I want to start in by saying, number one, I'm going to talk a little bit about a ground level foundation. And then from there, I want to be able to transition to a Q&A style. That way we can at least establish what is essential to weight loss. And also from there, go over any questions or concerns that you might have. So just to start off, I want to start off with a simple formula for weight loss. And it's calories in versus calories out. As you guys will see, I'm not a professional speaker. I am definitely not a professional handwriter. But basically, what it comes down to losing weight, your body naturally is going to burn your weight at a ratio proportionate to the amount of calories it's burning on a day-to-day basis. So let's say you're an average American and you are burning roughly 2,000 calories a day. That's including your thinking, your breathing, your heart pumping, you just living, and you're burning 2,000 calories a day. If you look at different nutrition facts on the back, it'll say based off of a 2,000 calorie diet. That's where that number comes from. And so if you're eating less than the 2,000 calories, you're actually going to be able to lose weight. So every single time, it doesn't matter whether you're low carb, low fat, low protein, low anything, if you're not at least below that threshold, then you're not going to lose weight. So conversely, I want to say too that calories and food aren't necessarily the same thing when you're looking at losing weight. The common thing is, oh, I need to eat less food. That could be true, but let me put this into perspective for you. You can eat fast food, which is typically high in fat, and it's really high in calories. So what that means is you're not going to be able to eat as much food within that 2,000 calories. Now on the flip side, let's say you're a big salad fan. Me, not so much. But you could realistically eat 3 pounds of a salad and have 300 to 400 calories. And that salad would fill you up. I mean, a 3-pound salad is huge. So it's not always necessarily the amount of food as is the calories of food. So one thing that I've done to really help out with my weight loss is find high volume foods that are low in calories. One of my favorite things that I found recently was actually a low calorie bread. You can find it at Myers, you can find it at Kroger, pretty much any local grocery store. But it's basically 40 calories per slice. When you look at the normal slice of bread, it's between 70 and 100 calories. So I can basically have 2 slices of bread for the price of one, and that's actually going to fill me up way more. So the next thing I want to talk about too is when we talk about low carb, it does not equal low calorie. And we're all familiar with the keto diet. We're all familiar with people saying carbs are bad, sugar is bad. And too much can definitely be a bad thing, but the one thing I want to really drill in over the course of tonight is moderation is key in everything. So let's take a low carb food like peanut butter, for instance. It's really not that high in carbs at all, not high in sugars, but it's extremely high in fat. And so when you look at a nutrition label, you'll find just a small amount of peanut butter is actually almost 200 calories. And if you're like me, I could go through a whole jar of peanut butter in one sitting, and I'm going to venture to say a whole jar of peanut butter is probably going to be well over the 2,000 calorie threshold that we're looking at to lose weight. So carbs are not the enemy. In fact, carbs are very essential to the body it's your body's primary source of energy. So if you're doing keto diets or you're doing low carb, keep in mind that's your body's main source of energy. So your body really needs that to function properly. I will say too, I'm not a dietitian, but if you are doing a ketogenic diet, do make sure you're consulting your doctor. Make sure you're consulting your dietitian, because there's a lot of serious implications that can happen when you're doing that. So make sure you're consulting with a professional on that on a regular basis. But when we look at low fat, a lot of people say, well, low fat's, that's a big fat, everybody wants to do that. And that's totally fine, but keep in mind there's also healthy fats as well. So again, not all fats are bad. So there's such thing as good cholesterol, which is HDL. If you've ever gotten your blood cholesterol levels taken, you've probably heard a doctor say, oh, your HDLs are low, or your HDLs are right in the optimal range. Those are typically the best indicators for good heart health. In fact, if your HDLs are high enough, you're actually considered to be a positive when it comes to factors that are affecting heart health. So you don't want your HDLs to be low, but there's also the LDLs, which is the bad cholesterol, and that's what you want to avoid. And that typically comes in your highly saturated foods, stuff like beef, stuff like what you're going to get at fast food restaurants. But when you look at healthy fats, like what comes in peanut butter, avocados, those are good for your body. So just because it's high in calories does not mean that it's bad for you. But the next thing I want to talk about here too is just the importance of water. Because when you start cutting out water from your diet, just a 1 to 2% decrease in hydration can actually have some noticeable changes in your body's functionality. You might become more foggy. You might notice that you're not always as awake and alert. There's a lot of important essential things that are to your benefit when drinking water. So you want to make sure as you're losing weight and you're cutting out calories, you're not cutting back your intake of water. In fact, you should probably be increasing it. One of the biggest problems with people who go on the ketogenic diet is they lose a lot of water weight. The reason being, carbs actually hold more water in them than proteins or fats. So when you cut out the carbs, there's actually a lot of water weight you lose very fast associated with ketogenic diets. And the one thing I want to say too is I'm not opposed to low carb, low fat, keto diets, whatever, because ultimately if you can sustain that diet, and when I mean sustain, I mean over the course of an entire lifetime, and if you can do that, that is absolutely great and power to you. Me personally, I like my pastas, I like my carbs, so it's not anything I'm cutting out, but it is important, like I said, if you are doing something along those lines, that you are increasing your water intake. But again, low carbs doesn't mean low calories. So what that means is you can cut out, you can do a ketogenic diet and you can cut carbs, but if you replace carbs with something that's more dense in calories like fat, you're actually going to notice that you may not even lose that much weight. You might lose some water weight up front. Like I said, when you cut out the carbs, naturally there's less water in your body to be stored because the carbs do hold more water. So it is important that we do stay hydrated. It's important that we note that cutting carbs does not equal cutting calories. So an example of being on a ketogenic diet typically is something higher in fats, and roughly about 10 grams of calories are found in 1 gram of fat, whereas with carbs and protein, it's about 4. So the way I like to look at that is, if I were to do a low-fat diet, I could actually have 2 grams of carbs or 2 grams of protein for that 1 gram of fat that I cut out. So as you're cutting out calories, you still do want to be replacing it with something else. Just cutting out every single carb, you will lose weight, but it's also not sustainable. We want to make sure that we're losing weight at a slower pace. And I know everybody wants to lose the 20 pounds, overnight. And to be completely honest with you, if you're trying to lose 20, 50, 100 pounds in 1 month, I'm not going to be the person you're going to want to listen to, because I want you to be able to keep that weight off. Now, that being said, the importance of water too is when you're on a diet and you start cutting out all these things, if you aren't doing it properly, it's going to be miserable. I mean, we've all probably been on a diet where we were like, wow, I've lost 20 pounds, but man, this first week it was like, wow, I was super groggy. I was getting headaches, different stuff like that. That typically comes from trying to cut out too much too quick. Starting something small, a couple hundred calories, maybe not even, maybe 100 calories, but just progressively building in those habits. But one of the biggest things for me is when I'm looking at a diet I want to do, I don't want it to be so restrictive that my life is miserable. I mean, think about it. If you're on a diet where you can never have cake, you can never have Alfredo, you can never have onion rings, those are just a few of my favorite foods. And that would be a pretty miserable life if I can't have those foods. So through the week, what I try to do is I try to be very creative in how I'm structuring my food. So if I can find different replacements, such as replacing Greek yogurt for sour cream. A lot of people don't know this, but the plain Greek yogurt is almost identical to sour cream. And when we talk about high volume versus high calories and how they're not always equal, one serving of plain Greek yogurt is actually almost 3 times the amount volume-wise than sour cream, but it's half the calories and way more protein, so you're going to feel full longer. So again, we're looking at making sure that we're doing things sustainably and it's not as miserable. But for the people who are trickling in right now, do me a favor, comment your name below, because after this live broadcast, I'm actually going to be offering some free health consultations, and I want to make sure that I can get you access to that. Right now, I'm not able to see who's on, so definitely go ahead, drop your name, maybe drop what you're excited about, even drop some questions you have, and we'll make sure we address them along the way. But definitely go ahead and let me know that. When we're looking at basic weight loss principles, it is super important that it's 80% diet and 20% exercise. You've probably heard phrases like, you won't build your abs in the gym, you build them in the kitchen. You've probably heard before, exercise is only 20% of the equation. But exercise is still super, super important. And to give you an idea of this, the more muscle you have, the more you're going to burn calories at rest. So weightlifting is super important in the grand scheme of things. I'm not going to say you have to go out there, you have to be the world's strongest man, but go out there and lift weights. And I know sometimes that can be a little intimidating, but we all start somewhere. And I remember when I was in high school sports, especially my freshman year, I was by far the weakest person. There were people literally half my size that could lift 2 times more than me. And it definitely is something that you have to kind of teach yourself, like, hey, you know what? I'm here for me. I'm here to be better for myself. And I'm not going to sit here and say, sometimes there are some mental obstacles to overcome when we're going through these things. So, for instance, I used to be around people who were constantly lifting heavy weights, slamming them on the ground, grunting, like groaning, and it's like, my gosh, these guys are so strong, and I'm over here like curling 10-pound dumbbells, and they can basically curl my whole body. Like, it does feel a little intimidating, but it's important to remember it's about you. It's about your health. The whole purpose of what I'm putting together today is to put you first. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I want to make sure you're able to sort out what's real, what's relevant, and what's right. But going back to the exercise, there's 2 main types of exercises. There's typically comes down to weightlifting and then cardio. And they're both super important pieces of the puzzle, because little known fact or little understood fact is cardio actually burns more calories than weightlifting. But the reason why weightlifting is important is because it's going to build muscle. And when you have more muscle, you're going to burn more calories at rest than when you're working out. So don't let anybody say that weightlifting is not important. Weightlifting is non-essential to the weight loss formula, because it is important. I mean, would you rather burn more calories at rest or less calories at rest? I mean, especially for people who are doing something extremely restrictive and you're feeling tired and fatigued all the time and you can't perform in the gym, you probably want to be losing more calories at rest than not at all. So it is important to have that weightlifting aspect to it. But cardio is so essential, and the reason being, you're going to burn the most calories. It's the most bang for your buck when it comes to exercise. So there's two different types of cardio. It's steady state and high intensity interval training. Oftentimes it's referred to as HIIT training. But the reason why this is important to distinguish, there is a little bit of misconfusion around HIIT training. A lot of people hear the afterburn effect, or you're going to burn more calories at rest with HIIT. And that's technically true. You know, over the course of a 10-hour time frame, you are going to burn more calories at rest than you would with steady state cardio. But the one important thing to understand when it comes to steady state cardio is you're going to burn more in one amount of time. So for instance, I like actually just going on the treadmill for a walk, and that would be considered steady state cardio. It's basically the same intensity throughout the whole duration of the time. And it's a lot easier on your joints, especially if you're trying to maintain muscle mass while you're working out, and if you're also trying to lose lots of calories. You know, you can adjust the incline, you can adjust the speed, and these are nice little ways to increase the amount of calories you're burning without making it absolutely impossible to perform a workout. And to be honest with you, most people can't actually do HIIT. They love to say, oh, I did, really hard workout for 60 seconds and then I took a break for 60 seconds. Or I did it for 30 seconds and did it for 30 seconds. It's not HIIT training. HIIT training is like all out, the max you can do, no holding back, for like 30 seconds, and then it's 5 to 10 seconds off, and you're back at it again going as hard as you can. And a lot of people don't understand that that time frame needs to be your all out, all the way. And that can be really hard on your joints. It can be really hard on your muscle structure too. So as you're lifting weights in the gym and you're trying to lose weight, but you're doing HIIT as your cardio, you're probably breaking down more muscle than you're actually building. And so it kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish. But steady state cardio, it's really nice because there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Many people will hop on stationary bikes. They'll maybe run for a couple miles. I'm a larger guy, and I'll be honest, I don't run well, but I can be on a treadmill for an hour. I can be on the treadmill for 2 hours and mess with the inclines, mess with the speeds. And a lot of times I can burn more calories that way than most people are going to burn in HIIT. Because if you go all out for 15, 20 minutes in HIIT, and let's say you get the afterburn effect, all in all, you're probably only burning 300 to 400 calories. And that sounds nice. And if you're in a time crunch, I can definitely see the use case there. But if you're trying to do something sustainably and something that's not going to be as harmful, I don't want to say harmful necessarily, but something as hard on your joints and on your immune system as HIIT training can be, just assess it for what it is. If you're one of those people who just don't have time to go to the gym and you need those 15 to 20 minute workouts, then that's fine, that's great. Like I said, we want to do what's sustainable, and that's different for a lot of people. So the one thing I want to emphasize is, while I might be answering questions, and while I might be talking about a lot of different information, this isn't me saying, you need to do this. This isn't me saying, step by step, this is what you have to do. I want to give you some high-level general information, and when we meet up for that free health consultation, I would love to take what your goals are, because some people are looking to gain weight, some people are looking to put on muscle, and some people are looking to lose weight. I mean, me personally, I'm actually trying to lose weight for my wedding coming up here in August. So that's a big driving factor for me. But how people react and how people handle certain things is very different. So I'm not going to tell anybody that this is exactly how you have to do everything, but this is some general groundwork for what's true about weight loss. So like I said, I just want to lay down a foundation for what's important before we open up to Q&A. And just to kind of quickly recap, calories in versus calories out is always the equation for weight loss. If you want to lose weight, you have to drop calories. If you want to cut out carbs, you have to make sure that you're not replacing too many carbs with something else to the point where you're still not losing weight. So just because you're cutting carbs, most times people bring in more fat or they bring in too much protein. So that will affect how much weight you lose, because if you cut out 500 calories from a 2,000 calorie diet out of carbs, and then you replace that 500 calories with protein, you're not going to lose weight. Or at least not much outside of the water weight that you lose. But with that being said, I want to open this up to any questions or any comments or concerns, maybe things you've heard before that you weren't sure how true they were. So I'm going to step up here a little bit. And is there any questions right now? Perfect, Alex, I appreciate that. So when we're looking at balancing calorie intake with weight training without gaining too much muscle, basically to put on weight, you're going to have to eat in a caloric surplus, or basically eat more calories than what your body naturally burns at rest. So if I were to say increase my calories by 200 to 300, and primarily would be protein, that's going to help me increase my muscle or my overall weight with gaining muscle. But me personally, it's a little misconstrued. Most people don't know this. You can actually gain some muscle while losing weight, and that's currently what I'm doing, and that's why I'm doing it so slow, because I, number one, want it to be sustainable, but number two, I also want to make sure I'm keeping a good physique as I'm losing weight. Many people fall victim to not trying to sustain the muscle they have. They're just trying to lose weight. So not only do they lose the fat, which is obviously the end game, but they're also losing muscle. And so a lot of people will say, hey, I lost 35 pounds. And they're like, wow, like losing 35 pounds, I'm actually, pretty, loose skin, a little flabby. And that comes from losing that muscle mass. So that's a great, great question. And your follow-up question, do you keep track closely or relatively loose? I keep track pretty closely. I've been doing this for a long time, so I have a pretty good idea of how many calories are in the food that I'm eating. And this is another tip, but again, I don't want to say you have to do this. Counting calories is probably one of the best ways to make sure you're losing weight. Because again, if it comes down to calories in versus calories out, and you don't know how many calories you're eating, I'm not saying you aren't going to lose weight, but it's like saying, hey, you know what? I make $2,000 a month at my job, and I don't have a budget. Is it possible for you to save money? Yes. But is it possible for you to maybe spend more money than you intended if you aren't monitoring that? Yeah. So again, take that for what it's worth. I know some people don't like the idea of counting calories, and if you can do it without counting calories, great. If not, and I'll even write this up here, there's a great app called MyFitnessPal. You can get it for any phone you have, and basically what it will do is it'll have all these foods in it to the brand. So let's say you get Kroger brand peanut butter. It has the Kroger brand peanut butter nutrition facts in there, so it's easy for you to do that. Some people, like my dad, he actually took a notebook and wrote down everything he ate, all the calories, all the carbs, all the fats. And if you want to do that and it works for you like it worked for him, that is great. That is absolutely fine. Like I said, we're looking for what's sustainable. But it looks like there might have been another question here. Yeah, so I totally understand not liking cardio, to be completely honest with you. It didn't used to be my favorite thing, but what I found with cardio, I am a big time fan of multitasking. So I love listening to like self-development podcasts, or I know some people watch YouTube or Netflix. So there's a lot of different things you can do while doing steady state cardio. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, it's really boring to me. And sometimes I hate to say this, but yeah, you do kind of have to bite the bullet. I mean, if you're sitting at home watching Netflix all the time, or you're sitting at home watching the news, you have to start looking at different alternatives for how you can be active. I know me personally, when I started losing weight in junior high, I was a little on the heavier side, but I played a lot of video games. And I loved playing video games. I did not want to not play video games, but I started realizing, hey, I'm kind of getting a little overweight. So I kind of realized, maybe I could make this a little bit fun. So in between games, I would actually do push-ups, or I would do squats or something like that. So maybe an alternative for you might be, hey, in between commercial breaks or in between Netflix episodes, I'm doing an exercise. I'm doing something for just a minute, and it doesn't have to be crazy hard, but maybe you're just taking some time to do some squats or some push-ups. I mean, it might sound crazy, guys, but just going up against a wall like this and doing push-ups, it's better than just sitting in the chair all day not doing anything. But for me personally, I like jumping on the treadmill. I like watching videos while I'm walking, do my hour of cardio, my half an hour cardio, whatever I have time for. But it gets me out moving instead of sitting down in a chair like that. So, I mean, unfortunately, it kind of comes down to, no, there's no replacement for cardio. I mean, after all, it's going to help improve your cardiovascular system, which that's your heart. That's what pumps your blood. That's what delivers nutrients to the brain. It's so important to take care of your heart, and it's just one of those aspects of fitness and health you really can't neglect. But great question, Lauren. So women on average is typically going to be about 16 to 1800 calories roughly. And this is something I would love to go into detail with you because everybody's different. Your height is going to change how many calories you burn at rest. Your weight, your age, there are a lot of factors that go into it. And there are calculators online. And I'll even type this into the chat here so that way you guys can check this out. But if you Google that BMR calculator, it's actually going to come up with something where you can calculate an approximate idea of how many calories you're burning at rest at your age, your weight, your height. So, Lauren, I would love to tell you, hey, I think you should eat this many calories, but I would be doing you a disservice, and I would probably be doing more harm than good than to say you need to eat this many calories, because you could be eating less than what I'm saying already, and if you started eating those calories, then you would actually be putting on weight. And if I said you need to be eating this many calories, it might be way less than what you're eating, and then that could be, again, not very beneficial in long-term sustaining weight loss. But great question. I mean, that's one of the most popular questions I always get. People want to know, well, what is that balance for me? So, Lauren, I'll reach out to you, and I would love to set up just 15, 20, 30 minutes to kind of go over some of what your goals are, look at where you're at currently, and then talk about a game plan for how we can get to wherever you want to go. Whether it's gaining more weight or muscle or losing weight, whichever, I want to meet you at your goals and help you get there. What are some of the biggest mistakes people can make when starting a workout regimen? That is a great, great question, Waylon. So the biggest mistake is thinking that you have to be the strongest person in the gym or doing the workout that you saw an Instagram model do. I'm going to be a little blunt here. I like social media. I don't use it a ton. But Instagram is not where you want to be getting your information from. There are a lot of people with very good genetics, people who can literally spend all day working out, and they will say, oh, I'm in good shape, so do this exercise, do this exercise. 9 out of 10 times, they aren't teaching you proper technique. They're probably not teaching you any technique, and they're probably extremely, extremely, extremely harmful to your joints. Unfortunately, I see a lot of women doing stuff like this, and it's through no fault of their own. It's just they don't really know where to get the information from. So they see somebody, and even guys who are very big into powerlifting too, they see somebody who has the physique they want, and they say, well, if I want that physique, I have to do what they say and do what they want. But for me, when I'm looking at what I want, and if I'm looking at somebody who I think has what they want, I want to know, number one, do they know what they're doing? And are they actually able to teach what they've done? Because that's going to cause a lot of problems. You can have somebody who has very great genetics. I mean, we all know that person who's like 140 pounds, soaking wet. They out-eat everybody at the buffet. And if they were to say, oh yeah, like I do abs like once a month, so that's how I stay lean. And it's like, okay, that's not really duplicatable. That's not really sustainable. And for most people, it's not going to be beneficial at all. So definitely, that's probably the biggest thing I see the most out of anything is people trying to do exercises that, number one, shouldn't be done or that they don't know the proper technique to. One of the biggest reasons people don't stay on a weight loss program is because of injury or because they're trying to do too much at one time. So if I were, say, eating 2,000 calories, I said, I'm going to go hard, I'm going to lose a bunch of weight, and I cut out 1,000 calories a day, and I'm eating only 1,000 calories, I'm going to be miserable the whole time, and I'm going to end up putting on that weight. And in fact, I can say personally this is true because back in 2016, during the summer, I actually cut my calories. I was eating about 2,500 calories a day, cut it down to 1,400 calories, and was miserable all the time. Lost a bunch of weight, and I was working out a lot. I got to be pretty quick, pretty fast, pretty good cardiovascular. But a year later, I put all the weight back on. I lost 35 pounds over the course of a summer. And again, I don't want to teach you something for you to lose weight and then for you 1 year later to be even heavier than what you were before. I would rather you lose 1 pound over the course of a year because you learned something new that can be implemented into your lifestyle than me saying, all right, hey, we're taking auditions for the next biggest loser and we're going to tell you to cut every calorie, work out 24/7. We're all busy. We all have lives. We all know what's reasonable, what's not. You know, maybe not everybody can get to the gym. Maybe not everybody can spend hundreds of dollars on groceries. Maybe not everybody can find the time to work out. And I understand. That's why I wanted to teach you sustainable stuff from both ends of the spectrum, from the diet and the exercise. Because if you have the time to go to the gym, it is so important for your overall health to go. I mean, I cannot stress enough, weight loss is 20% exercise, 80% diet, but your health is 100% of everything. So you don't want to neglect one and say one's more important than the other. You know, some might get you results quicker than others, but that doesn't mean that the other facets aren't important. Like I said, having more muscle is important for burning more calories at rest, but not only that, when you're 70 and 80 years old, you want to make sure you have enough muscle that you can still lift your legs up to walk. I mean, as we get older, naturally, we tend to become more sedentary. And when we're more sedentary, we don't have as much muscle. We don't become as limber. I mean, stretching is also so important. So to answer your question, yeah, definitely it's going to become taking on too much at once, and it's going to be risk of injury because people are doing exercises that they shouldn't be doing at that level. They need to start off small and easy before they try doing something advanced. It's just not smart to try to hurt yourself right out of the gate. With that being said, does anybody else have any other questions? I mean, I'm here for you guys. Like I said, I wanted to take about an hour. I know we're at a half an hour mark right now, but I can just wait a couple minutes here to see if anybody else has any other questions. And then I'll wrap up with, honestly, the two biggest things that have helped me out in losing my weight. And that's one of the biggest things I wanted to emphasize, guys. What I'm doing, it's not something where I popped a pill and I'm losing weight. I'm not taking these juice diets and there's some magical jungle juice that's going to help me lose all this weight. Guys, I'm going to be honest, 9 out of 10 times that stuff doesn't work or it comes with massive side effects. Most people don't realize with the fat burners out there, they actually are a stimulant. They jack up a lot of things in your system. And really, it's not anything that's positive for your body. There's a lot of side effects that can be associated with those. So, again, I want to teach you guys something that's sustainable. I'll be honest, some of you guys might need to supplement with protein. Some people might maybe need to cut back in carbs. There's a lot of different facets to it. But that's why I want to meet you guys on a 1-to-1 scale. and see what I can do to help you as an individual reach what you're trying to go after. Because it doesn't do me any good to say everybody here needs to eat 1,600 calories, and then for some person here, that might mean they're going to put on weight when they're trying to lose weight. And for somebody else, it might mean that they're cutting way too many calories at once. So I just want to get on and give some general information. And with that being said, if there are no more questions, alrighty, then I'm just going to go right into it. So the two biggest things that have helped me out, and will help anybody out, to be completely honest with you, is my protein intake and my fiber intake. My fiance Brie is my witness. She's at work right now, or I guarantee you she would be on the comments saying this is true. She asks me very frequently, am I on a diet? Because I still eat fast food. I'm not superhuman. I don't have the world's greatest willpower. I'm not turning around or turning away onion rings. Like those are my favorite things. So I'm definitely not turning those away. But it's just about being sustainable. So I'm actually increasing my protein intake and I'm increasing my fiber intake. And I do so well with that during the week, Monday through Friday, and honestly even Saturday and Sunday, that if I happen to cheat, I go out to McDonald's, I go out to wherever, and I grab something real fast, I'm actually still losing weight. So the reason why protein and fiber are so important is because they're going to help a lot more with satiety. Like I said, carbs and fats have their place. They are not your enemy. Fats are very good for heart health when they're the right fats. So eating lower in those saturated fats is going to be better for your health, and eating higher in the unsaturated fats is going to be better for you. But they're important. Carbs, again, they are not your enemy. Your body, your brain needs them to do its functions properly. In fact, people who are in depleted states of carbs for extended amounts of time in older adults, there's actually more symptoms to be associated with dementia and Alzheimer's and poor cognitive function. So just something to keep in mind when you're assessing these things and you're doing extremely low carb diets. You should definitely be consulting with your doctor before doing anything like that. But the reason why fiber is so important, it's actually considered to be a carbohydrate. So when you're looking at the nutrition facts, you'll see on there it says fiber underneath the carbs. And granted, there actually are some calories to fiber. It is a pretty minute amount. So a lot of times you'll see on nutrition labels, oh, it has 4 grams of fiber, so you subtract 4 grams from the total amount of carbs, and that's how many carbs are actually in it. That's a good guideline. I'm not going to say it's 100% accurate, but for the average person, it's important. But what fiber does is actually when you eat it, it's almost like a sponge. So it's going to go in there, it's actually going to absorb fluids. So again, water is important to have, and it's actually going to expand in your stomach. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is why I eat chicken, rice, and broccoli when I'm on a diet. Rice doesn't really have that much fiber at all in it. The reason why rice is something bodybuilders and people eat is because it actually, with the rice, it actually absorbs some water, but it does break down pretty quick too. So it's not quite the same as fiber where it will actually fill up and it will sit in your stomach. So think about it like this. If I'm eating a high fiber breakfast, let's say my stomach's empty. I have some fiber, it's down here, it's in my digestive tract, and it expands. So now I'm like, ooh, maybe I don't really need to eat that much right now, because if I were to eat more food, I'm like, well, I'm stuffed. As the day goes on, it's still working down through my digestive tract, but if I continue to eat more fiber, it's actually going to move slower through my digestive tract, so that way it actually makes you feel, and you actually are full longer. So it's so important. I mean, I don't want to say eat crazy amounts of fiber, but I'll be honest. If you eat 30 to 40 grams of fiber and you increase your intake to roughly the recommended guidelines from the American Dietetics Association, typically you're looking at about 100 grams of protein. And if you do 100 grams of protein and 30 to 40 grams of fiber, you're going to notice your weight loss isn't actually miserable. To be completely honest, I have not really had one day where I was like, man, I cut so many calories, or I just feel absolutely miserable. Matter of fact, I probably eat way more food now than I did before I was on a diet. But because I was smart with how I was eating, aka higher protein, higher fiber, and lower in fat, but still getting the healthy fats, I'm actually feeling full on a lot less calories, and I don't feel like I'm being depleted as much. So that's an insanely helpful trick. I did see that we had maybe one more or a couple more questions come in. Yeah, so, and that's exactly why, that's a great point, Lauren, sorry, is we do want to make sure we have a certain percentage of protein. So typically they say on a minimum end, you want to have about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of mass. And to do the quick conversion for you, that's about 0.35 grams per pound of body mass. So if you weigh 220 pounds, you're roughly looking about 80, 90 grams of protein on the low end, just so you can sustain muscle maintenance. Now, like I said, if you're cutting calories, you do want to increase the protein intake so you are maintaining the muscle, especially if you're trying to work out too. It's going to be important to get the adequate protein intake, but that's exactly why your doctor will say eat more fruits and more vegetables, because those are actually higher in fiber. So if you're looking for foods that are higher in fiber, it's going to be your veggies, it's going to be your fruits, and there's so many different ones. I mean, that's kind of the beautiful thing about going on a diet. So you can try foods in so many different ways. And to be honest, my fiance can attest, not a big vegetable person. I've grown to like broccoli, which is a huge step for me. But I've also found a lot of other foods that I can replace. Like I love, with all my heart, French toast. But with that bread that I was mentioning earlier, it's something like 40 grams or 40 calories. It's actually got 10 grams of fiber in it. And I can have 4 pieces of French toast. And I'm like, dude, I don't need to eat for like half the day. And if you do the math there, 4 times 4, that's 160 calories. You add in, I do syrup, kill me. Like I said, not all carbs are bad. Everything's in moderation. But I can enjoy foods that I like with different substitutes. But protein, you're going to find more in your meats. And to be completely honest, you're going to find protein in vegetables. But it's not the best quality source. I don't want to go too much into this because this is going to can get really high level. But essentially, with plant proteins, they aren't complete proteins. So if you're going to do a vegetarian lifestyle or a vegan lifestyle and eat only plant-based foods, it's going to be a lot harder to reach the protein amount needed unless you're going to supplement with protein shakes, essential amino acids, which there's nothing wrong with doing that. If that's the route you're going to choose, it's going to be a route you're probably going to have to go down. Or you have to be very, very, very knowledgeable at what plant-based foods you need to pair with what to get those whole proteins. But eggs are a perfect source of protein. They're low in fat, no carbs, only 60 to 90 calories depending on the size of egg you get. Great source of protein. Chicken is another great source of protein. And of course, you can always get like ground turkey, ground beef. You can get that stuff. And obviously, the higher percentage of fat-free it is. So if you get, most people probably get like 82 to 18. That's going to be a little bit higher in calories than if you were getting 99 to 1. And I know some people can't stand that. It's too low in fat concentration. I appreciate that. There's also the 92 and 8, which I think is actually a pretty good balance personally. But just keep in mind, the more fat-free it is when it comes to like meat, it's going to typically mean you can eat more of it proportionally. So let's say one serving of 82 to 18% beef is 340 calories. The 99 to 1 might only be 180 calories. And you can probably eat a serving and a half for basically the same amount as what the 82 to 18 is. So keep in mind, it's one of those things where you can work smarter and not harder. And that's the biggest thing, because as long as you're in that caloric deficit, it does not matter how much food you're eating. If you're eating 1,600 calories and that's 400 below, or actually we'll say 1,500 calories, you consume 1,500 calories and you're burning 2,000 calories a day, you're actually going to be on pace for about a pound a week of weight loss. And what's important to understand with that, Where that comes from, approximately, this isn't exact, but roughly 3,500 calories. I'll put this up here too. Well, maybe. But 3,500 calories is actually about 1 pound of fat. So we'll erase some of this right here. So from there you can kind of do the math. If you're cutting out 500, and I don't even want to say cut out 500 because there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Let's say you're eating 2,000 calories and you're burning the 2,000 calories that your body typically does from doing normal functions like eat, breathe, sleep, live, whatever. You can actually add another 500 calories or 500 burn calories from exercise. So maybe you're on the treadmill at a 3% or at a 3 speed on a 3% incline. You'll actually find that in about an hour you'll actually burn about 500 calories, probably even more to be honest with you. And so that's another way that you can incorporate losing more weight. So exercise is the beautiful thing about this formula is you don't have to cut all the calories out to lose 3,500 calories or to burn 3,500 calories. You can maybe cut out 250 calories and do 250 calories worth of exercise. I will say, this isn't a popular thing people like to hear. The Fitbit, the calorie tracker, they're not really very accurate. And I know a lot of people live and die by them, and they're a great tool for tracking. So what I always tell people is if you're gonna bet on that number, then make sure that you're constantly burning right around the same amount of calories, and then the amount that you're consuming is consistent. That way you know when you're losing weight, you're on a trajectory where it makes sense. But yeah, again, the trackers aren't 100% accurate. Matter of fact, they're probably not even 80% accurate. And I know they'd love to tell you that they are, but trust me, when you do the studies of VO2 max and different stuff like that to actually gauge metabolic rate and how many calories you're going to be burning at rest, they're not super accurate. But this number is a great number to just kind of keep in mind. Like I said, if you're burning 3,500 calories a week, that's a pound of weight you're losing every single week. And so that's also how I kind of picked out how much weight I was going to lose for myself. And that's how I decided how long I was going to take to do it. Because I wanted to do it, number one, sustainably. And number two, I wanted to make sure that it was something reasonable. Because after a while, when you start losing weight, you're actually going to burn less calories at rest. So it's something to keep in mind. But like I said, that's something I definitely want to go over with people on a one-on-one basis. Kind of answer stuff that's more relevant to them. I just want to give you guys some high-level general information. That being said, is there any other questions anybody else has before I wrap this all up? All right. Well, with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up. Feel free to shoot me a message. Feel free to comment below that you're interested. And I'll actually be sending out an invite to a Facebook group page. And it's called You First. And the reason why it's called You First, again, I want to put you guys first. There's so much misinformation out there about how to lose weight, what it takes to lose weight, what you have to do. It doesn't have to be all these sexy buzzwords like, oh, shred weight and burn fat overnight. Like, to be honest with you guys, sustainable weight loss, it doesn't come down to super exciting, super trendy, super buzzwords. It comes down to just, ugly words like fiber, like it's going to take some time. You should do it sustainably. You need to exercise. So what I want to do with this group is I actually want to make it a supportive environment. So I want people to post their goals. Hey, my name is AJ Miller. Currently right now I weigh 218 I wish, but 220 pounds. And I'm trying to get down to 200 pounds for my wedding. So I'm trying to lose another 18, 20 more pounds. And then feel free to respond to people's goals. Like, that's awesome. I'm cheering for you. And I want people to like post their wins. You know, hey, I've been trying some different habits for the last few weeks. I'm down 3 pounds. And to be honest, like anything, you're probably going to lose a lot of weight in the beginning. You might lose 3 to 5 pounds in the first couple weeks. And that's normal. But overall, we want it to be slower, long-term, sustainable weight loss. But I want this to be a good environment for people to be supportive of each other, a place where I can post some information so that way you know, hey, this is some actual credible, evidence-based facts instead of, oh, this Instagram model on, Instagram has this blog and she's going to tell you how all her clients lost 35 pounds but not show you that 2 years later they put on 70. So with that, guys, I really appreciate you attending. Super excited. Again, when you join that group, I'll actually reach out to you about setting up a one-on-one health consultation. We can talk about what your goals are in more depth, where you're at currently, and how we can actually help you sustain that. Because some of you might be doing what I'm doing already, and we can discuss a game plan for maybe some other things you can implement. Some of you might not be doing any of this stuff, so it gives us a chance to say, hey, here's where we should start, and progressively we can add in these things. But again, appreciate the time, guys. Thank you very much, and hope you guys have yourselves a great night. Take care.